This wealthy family thought poverty was a disease. They threw out their innocent daughter-in-law like trash, laughing at her tears. But years later, when she returned, they were the ones begging on their knees. Will she forgive them or make them pay for every painful moment? Sit back and find out as we enter this deeply emotional story of betrayal, loss, and justice. In the bustling heart of Lagos, Nigeria, there stood a mansion so magnificent that people would pause in their daily activities just to stare at its beauty. The compound was surrounded by golden gates that gleamed in the African sun. And behind those gates lived the Okonkwo family, one of the wealthiest and most powerful families in all of Nigeria. Chief Okonkwo was a man of great influence. He owned 3 oil companies, multiple real estate businesses across West Africa, and had deep connections with government officials and traditional rulers. His wealth was so vast that even other billionaires respected him with fear. His wife, Mrs. Okonkwo, was a woman who carried herself like a queen. She wore only the finest imported jewelry from Europe, her wrappers were made of the most expensive lace materials, and her shoes came directly from Italy. Every Sunday, when the family attended church, people would clear the way for her to pass. She loved the attention, the respect, the power that came with being married to Chief Okonkwo. But beneath all that expensive clothing and sparkling jewelry lived a heart that measured people only by their bank accounts. The Okonkwos had only one child, a son named Chike. He was a handsome young man, tall and well-built, with a smile that could light up any room. He had studied business management in London and had returned to Nigeria to help his father manage the family empire. Chike had everything money could buy. Expensive cars lined the garage of their mansion. His wardrobe was filled with designer suits. Beautiful women from wealthy families threw themselves at him wherever he went. But despite all these luxuries, Chike felt something was missing in his life. He felt empty inside, like a man living in a golden cage. His mother, Mrs. Okonkwo, had already selected several wealthy girls for him to marry. Girls whose fathers owned banks. Girls whose mothers were senators. Girls who spoke perfect English with British accents. Every weekend, she would invite one of these girls for dinner, hoping Chike would fall in love with one of them. But Chike always found an excuse to avoid these arranged meetings. Deep in his heart, he knew what he was looking for. He wanted something real, something genuine, something money could not buy. He wanted true love. The elders have a saying, when a man searches too hard for gold, sometimes God gives him a diamond instead. And that is exactly what happened to Chike. But the diamond would come wrapped in the simplest package, and his family would be too blind to see its value. It was a hot Tuesday afternoon when Chief Okonkwo called Chike into his study. The room was large and impressive, with walls lined with books and awards. Chief Okonkwo sat behind his massive mahogany desk, smoking an expensive cigar. "Chike, my son," he said in his deep, commanding voice, "I have a very important business deal in Enugu State. There is a piece of land there, very valuable land, and I need someone to go and negotiate with the village elders. You will go and represent me." Chike nodded respectfully. "Yes, father." "When do I leave?" "Tomorrow morning. My driver will take you. Stay for a week, study the land, meet with the elders, and close the deal. This is important for our family business. Don't disappoint me." "I won't, father. I promise." The next morning, Chike set out on the long journey to Enugu State. It took several hours of driving through busy highways and dusty village roads before they finally arrived at a small village called Ugweke. The village was nothing like Lagos. There were no tall buildings, no traffic lights, no fancy restaurants, just simple mud houses with zinc roofs, children running barefoot in the streets, and women carrying firewood on their heads. To most wealthy people from Lagos, this place would seem backward and unappealing. But to Chike, there was something peaceful about it, something real. The village elders welcomed Chike warmly. They provided him with a small guest house where he could stay during his visit. For 3 days, Chike met with the elders, discussed the land deal, inspected the property, and negotiated prices. The work was intense, but he was making good progress. On the 4th day, after a long and exhausting meeting under the hot sun, Chike decided to take a walk around the village to clear his mind. He needed to think, to breathe, to escape from all the business talk for a few hours. As he walked down a narrow path lined with palm trees, he heard something that made him stop in his tracks. It was a female voice singing in Igbo language. The voice was so pure, so beautiful, so filled with emotion that it seemed to touch his very soul. Chike followed the sound, his curiosity growing with every step. The singing led him to a small compound surrounded by a low fence made of sticks. There, under the shade of a large mango tree, sat a young woman. She was washing clothes in a big aluminum basin, and as she scrubbed, she sang with all her heart. She wore a simple faded wrapper tied around her chest, and her hair was braided in the traditional village style. Her feet were bare, and her hands showed the rough marks of someone who had worked hard all her life. But when Chike looked at her face, he forgot to breathe for a moment. She was beautiful. Not the artificial beauty of the Lagos society girls with their makeup and expensive weaves. This was natural beauty, the kind that comes from within. Her skin was smooth and dark, like rich chocolate. Her eyes were bright and innocent, and when she smiled to herself as she sang, Chike felt something shift in his chest. He stood there for almost 5 minutes, just watching her and listening to her voice, before she finally noticed him. When she looked up and saw a stranger standing there, she jumped in fright, her hand flying to her chest. "Oh, I am sorry, sir. I did not see you there. Please forgive me." Chike quickly raised his hands in a gesture of peace. No, please don't apologize. I should be the one apologizing for disturbing you. I was just walking by when I heard your beautiful voice. I could not help but stop to listen." The young woman lowered her eyes shyly, a small smile playing on her lips. "Thank you, sir. You are too kind. What is your name?" Chike asked gently, taking a step closer. "My name is Amara, sir." "Amara," Chike repeated softly. "That means grace. And truly, you carry grace in everything about you, from your voice to your spirit." Amara's cheeks darkened with a blush. "Thank you, sir. You speak very well. Are you from the city?" Chike smiled and nodded. "Yes, I'm from Lagos. I came here for business with the village elders." "And what about you, Amara? Do you live here?" "Yes, sir. I live here in this small compound with my grandmother. My parents died when I was very young in a car accident. Since then, my grandmother has been taking care of me." Chike's heart filled with sympathy. "I am so sorry to hear about your parents. That must have been very difficult for you." Amara nodded slowly, her eyes becoming distant as memories flooded back. "Yes, sir. It was very hard. I was only 7 years old when it happened. I cried every day for months. But my grandmother, she is a strong woman. She told me that life must continue and that my parents would want me to be strong. So I learned to be strong." "And what do you do now?" Chike asked, genuinely interested. "I help my grandmother sell vegetables at the market. Every morning, we wake up very early, even before the sun rises, and we prepare the vegetables. Then we carry them to the market and sell them. The money we make is not much, but it is enough for us to eat and to pay for small things. My grandmother always says, 'God will not give us more than we can carry.'" As Amara spoke, Chike noticed how humble and content she seemed, despite her poverty. There was no bitterness in her voice, no complaints about her difficult life. She spoke with acceptance and even gratitude. This was very different from the wealthy girls he knew in Lagos, who complained if their driver was 5 minutes late or if their designer handbag was last season's style. "Do you have any dreams, Amara? Anything you wish for in life?" Chike asked. Amara's eyes lit up for a moment. "Oh, yes, sir. I have one big dream. I wish to one day have a small shop of my own. Not something big or fancy, just a small shop where I can sell things and make enough money to take care of my grandmother properly. She is getting old now, and I want to give her a comfortable life before she leaves this world. That is my only dream." The simplicity and selflessness of her dream moved Chike deeply. Here was a young woman who did not dream of expensive cars or jewelry or trips to Dubai. She only dreamed of taking care of the grandmother who had raised her. At that moment, Chike knew he had found something rare, something precious, something worth more than all the gold his father owned. They talked for almost an hour under that mango tree. Amara told him about village life, about the festivals and traditions, about how the whole community helped each other during difficult times. Chike told her about Lagos, about the tall buildings and busy streets, about his work and his travels. But he was careful not to mention his family's wealth. He wanted her to know him as just Chike, not as the son of a billionaire. When Chike finally said goodbye and returned to the guest house, he could not stop thinking about Amara. That night, he lay on his bed staring at the ceiling, replaying their conversation in his mind. Her smile, her voice, her innocence, everything about her had captured his heart. The next morning, instead of going to meet the village elders as planned, Chike found himself walking back to Amara's compound. She was sweeping the small yard when she saw him approaching. Surprise and joy flickered across her face. "Mr. Chike." "Good morning, sir. I did not expect to see you again." "Please, just call me Chike. No need for Mr. or Sir. I was hoping we could talk some more. Would that be all right with you?" Amara nodded, her smile growing wider. "Yes, of course. Please come and sit under the mango tree. The sun is already very hot." And so began their friendship. Every day for the rest of that week, Chike would complete his business meetings with the village elders, and then he would visit Amara. Sometimes they would just sit and talk for hours. Other times, Chike would help her carry water from the village stream, even though she insisted he should not do such work. Once, he even helped her peel cassava for her grandmother's dinner, and they laughed together when he cut his finger because he did not know how to hold the knife properly. Amara's grandmother, Mama Oliaku, was a wise old woman with sharp eyes that seemed to see into people's souls. She watched how Chike looked at her granddaughter, and she noticed how Amara's face would light up whenever he arrived. One evening, after Chike had left, she called Amara inside their small house. "My daughter, come and sit with me. We need to talk." Amara sat on the mat beside her grandmother, her heart beating a little faster. "Yes, Grandma." "What is it?" Mama Oliaku looked at her granddaughter with serious eyes. "Amara, I have lived in this world for over 70 years. I have seen many things. I have seen love and I have seen lies. Tell me the truth. Has this young man from Lagos spoken to you about his feelings?" Amara lowered her eyes, unable to hide the small smile that appeared on her face. "Yes, Grandma. Yesterday, he told me that his heart has chosen me. He said he has never felt this way about anyone before." The old woman was quiet for a long moment, then she sighed deeply. "My child, I see how you look at him too. I see the joy he brings to your eyes. But I must warn you, this man comes from a different world. He wears expensive clothes. He speaks with the confidence of someone who has never known hunger. He is not a village boy. Have you asked yourself why a man like that would be interested in a poor girl like you?" Amara felt her throat tighten. "Grandma, Chike is different. He is not like other rich men. He has a good heart. He does not look down on me because I am poor. He talks to me with respect. He helps me with my work. He even sits on the ground and eats the simple food I prepare without complaint." "That may be true," Mama Oliaku said gently, placing her wrinkled hand on Amara's shoulder. "But remember this, my child. A man can be as sweet as honey when he is far from his family. But when he returns home, his family's voice may become louder than his heart's voice. If this man truly loves you and wants to marry you, he must be ready to stand by you when his family rejects you. Because mark my words, child, they will reject you. Rich people do not welcome poverty into their homes." Tears filled Amara's eyes. "Grandma, I am scared. What if you are right? What if he leaves me?" The old woman pulled her granddaughter into her arms. "Then you will survive, just like you survived losing your parents. But I will not stop you from loving him. Love is a gift from God, even when it comes with pain. I just want you to go into this with your eyes open, not closed. Promise me you will be careful with your heart." "I promise, Grandma." But the warnings of Mama Oliaku would soon prove prophetic in ways that would shatter hearts and destroy lives. When Chike's week in Ugweka came to an end, he knew he could not leave Amara behind. His heart had made its choice, and no amount of wealth or family pressure could change that. But he also knew the truth that both he and Amara had been avoiding. His parents would never accept her. They would never welcome a poor village girl with no education, no family connections, and no dowry into the prestigious Okonkwo family. The very thought would be an insult to them. On his last evening in the village, Chike sat with Amara under their mango tree, holding her hands in his. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. "Amara," he said softly, "I need to be honest with you about something." Amara looked into his eyes, and she could see the worry there. "What is it, Chike?" "You can tell me anything." Chike took a deep breath. "My family, they are not like the people here in the village. They measure a person's worth by the size of their bank account, by the schools they attended, by the important people they know. If I go back to Lagos and tell them I want to marry you, they will refuse. My mother will scream. My father will threaten to disown me. They will do everything in their power to separate us." Tears began to fall down Amara's cheeks. "Then maybe we should not continue this. Maybe it is better if you forget about me and go back to your world. I do not want to cause trouble in your family." "No," Chike said firmly, squeezing her hands tighter. "Don't say that. I am not asking you to give up. I am telling you this because I want us to face it together. I have thought about this carefully, and I have made a decision. I want to marry you, Amara. Not next year, not after convincing my parents. I want to marry you now, here in this village, before I return to Lagos." Amara's eyes widened in shock. "What? Chike, are you serious?" "I have never been more serious about anything in my life. I want to go to your grandmother tomorrow morning and ask for your hand in marriage. We will have a simple ceremony, just you, me, your grandmother, and a few witnesses. Then I will take you back to Lagos with me as my wife. Once we are married, my parents will have no choice but to accept you. It will be done, and they cannot undo it." Amara pulled her hands away, standing up and walking a few steps away. Her mind was racing. Everything was happening so fast. "Chike, I am scared. What if your parents never accept me? What if they make our lives miserable? What if they treat me badly?" Chike stood and walked to her, gently turning her to face him. "I will protect you, Amara. I promise. No one will mistreat you as long as I am there. Yes, it will be difficult at first. Yes, my parents will be angry, but I am their only son. They love me. Eventually, they will come to accept you because they will see how much we love each other." The next morning, Chike arrived at the compound dressed in his finest traditional attire. He had sent his driver to buy cola nuts, hot drinks, and other items required for a proper marriage proposal. Mama Oliaku sat on a wooden stool in the small parlor, her face serious as Chike knelt before her. "Mama Oliaku," Chike began, his voice respectful and steady. "I have come before you today to ask for something very precious. I want to marry your granddaughter, Amara. I know our time together has been short, but in this short time, she has captured my heart completely. I see in her a woman of grace, strength, and kindness. I see the woman I want to spend the rest of my life with." The old woman studied him carefully, her wise eyes searching his face. "Young man, my granddaughter told me about your conversation yesterday. She told me you want to marry her quickly, in secret, before returning to Lagos. This troubles my spirit. Mama, I understand your concern, but please believe me when I say that my intentions are pure. I love Amara truly. The reason for the quick marriage is not because I want to hide her or because I am not serious. It is because I know my family will try to stop us, and I cannot let that happen. I need to make Amara my wife before they have a chance to interfere." Mama Oliaku was silent for a long moment. Then she spoke, her voice heavy with emotion. "Chike, son of Okonkwo, I will be honest with you. You seem like a good man with a sincere heart. But I am an old woman who has seen many things in this life. I have seen how the rich treat the poor. I have seen how families from the city look down on village people like us. I am afraid for my granddaughter. I am afraid that you will take her to your world, and when things become difficult, you will abandon her there. She will be alone, lost in a place where she does not belong, with no one to help her." Chike's eyes filled with determination. "Mama, I swear to you on everything I hold sacred, I will never abandon Amara. She will never be alone as long as I draw breath. Yes, my family will be difficult. Yes, there will be challenges, but I am a man of my word. I am asking you to trust me with the most precious thing in your life, and I do not take that lightly." The old woman looked at her granddaughter, who stood in the doorway with tears streaming down her face. "Amara, my child, come here." When Amara knelt beside Chike, Mama Oliaku took both their hands and placed them together. I see the love between you two. It is real, and it is strong. Against my better judgment, against all my fears, I will give you my blessing. But Chike, if you ever hurt my granddaughter, if you ever make her cry tears of pain instead of joy, the ancestors will hold you accountable. Do you understand? I understand, Mama. And I promise you, I will spend every day of my life trying to make her happy. 2 days later, under the same mango tree where they had first talked, Chike and Amara were married in a simple ceremony. The village priest performed the traditional rites. A few neighbors served as witnesses. Amara wore a simple white wrapper and blouse that Chike had bought for her from the village market. There were no fancy decorations, no live band, no expensive photographers. But when Chike looked at Amara and said, "I take you as my wife," and when Amara replied, "I take you as my husband," there was more love in that small compound than in all the grand society weddings in Lagos combined. Mama Oliaku cried throughout the ceremony. She blessed them with prayers and words of wisdom. As Chike helped Amara into his car to begin their journey to Lagos, the old woman held her granddaughter one last time. "Remember who you are, my child. Remember where you come from. No matter what happens, never forget that you are worthy of love and respect. And if things become too difficult, if you ever need to come home, this door will always be open for you." The journey from Okonkwo to Lagos took several hours. Amara sat quietly in the car, watching the landscape change from rural villages to small towns and finally to the massive, overwhelming city of Lagos. Her eyes grew wide as they drove past tall buildings that seemed to touch the sky, bridges that stretched over water and streets filled with more cars than she had ever seen in her entire life. When they finally arrived at the Okonkwo mansion and drove through those famous golden gates, Amara felt her stomach twist with anxiety. The house was bigger than her entire village. The compound could fit 50 of her grandmother's houses with room to spare. Everything gleamed with wealth and luxury. She looked down at her simple clothes and felt very small. Chike squeezed her hand reassuringly. "Don't be afraid. You belong here now. You are my wife, and this is your home." But the moment they stepped out of the car, the front door of the mansion burst open, and Mrs. Okonkwo came rushing out like a storm. She was dressed in an expensive outfit, her jewelry catching the sunlight, but her face was twisted with rage. "Chike, where have you been? You were supposed to return 5 days ago. I have been calling your phone non-stop. Who is this girl you have brought to my house?" Chike stood tall, pulling Amara close to his side. "Mother, this is Amara. She is my wife. We got married 3 days ago in Okonkwo." The words hit Mrs. Okonkwo like a physical blow. For a moment, she just stood there, frozen in shock. Then she let out a scream that could be heard throughout the entire compound. "Your what? Your wife? Have you gone mad? Is this some kind of joke?" "It is not a joke, Mother. Amara is my wife, and I expect you to treat her with respect." Mrs. Okonkwo's eyes swept over Amara from head to toe, taking in her simple village clothes, her scared expression, her calloused hands. The contempt in her eyes was like acid. This village rat is what you chose to marry. Look at her. She looks like a housemaid. Where did you even find her in the gutter?" Tears sprang to Amara's eyes at the cruel words, but she remained silent, remembering her grandmother's teachings about respecting elders even when they are wrong. Chike's voice became hard as steel. "Mother, I will not allow you to speak about my wife that way. Amara is a good woman with a pure heart. You will treat her with respect, or you will deal with me." Before Mrs. Okonkwo could respond, Chief Okonkwo appeared in the doorway, his face dark with anger. "What is all this noise about? Chike, what is going on here?" Chike turned to face his father. "Father, I got married while I was in Okonkwo. This is Amara, my wife." Chief Okonkwo's expression went from confusion to fury in seconds. "You did what? Without my permission? Without our knowledge? Have you forgotten who you are? You are the heir to the Okonkwo Empire. You cannot just marry some random village girl without consulting your family. Father, with respect, I am a grown man. I have the right to choose my own wife." "Choose? You call this choosing?" Mrs. Okonkwo shrieked. You have destroyed our family name. What will people say? What will our friends think when they see that you married this poverty-stricken nobody?" The words cut into Amara's heart like knives. She wanted to run, to disappear, to go back to her grandmother's small compound where life was simple and people were kind. But Chike's hand held hers firmly, anchoring her to the spot. Chief Okonkwo paced back and forth, his anger radiating like heat. Finally, he stopped and pointed his finger at Chike. "You have made a terrible mistake, my son. But what is done is done. This marriage is a disgrace to our family. But I will not throw you out because you are my only child. However," he turned his cold eyes to Amara, "this girl will live in this house under my rules. She will learn what it means to be an Okonkwo. She will not embarrass us in front of our friends and business associates. Do you understand?" Chike nodded, relief flooding through him. At least his father was not throwing them out. "Yes, father. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. I am only accepting this situation because you are my son and I love you, but I am deeply disappointed in you. Now take your wife inside. Your mother will show her where she will stay." Mrs. Okonkwo's face was still twisted with hatred, but she said nothing more. She turned on her heel and marched into the house. Chike led Amara inside, following his mother up the grand staircase that seemed to go on forever. The inside of the mansion was even more intimidating than the outside. Crystal chandeliers hung from high ceilings, expensive paintings covered the walls. The floors were so shiny that Amara could see her reflection in them. Mrs. Okonkwo led them to a room on the second floor and threw open the door. "This is where you will stay. Try not to touch anything valuable. Everything in this house costs more than your entire village." Without waiting for a response, she stormed away, her footsteps echoing down the hallway. The room was larger than Mama Oliaku's entire house. It had a massive bed with silk sheets, a wardrobe bigger than any Amara had ever seen, and its own private bathroom with running water and a bathtub. Amara stood in the middle of the room, feeling completely lost. Chike wrapped his arms around her. "I am so sorry for how they treated you. But don't worry. Once they get to know you, once they see how wonderful you are, they will change their minds. I promise you, things will get better." For the first few days, Amara barely left the room. Chike would wake up early and go to work with his father, leaving her alone in the big house with Mrs. Okonkwo and the servants. The servants were kind enough, but they kept their distance, afraid of angering their madam. Mrs. Okonkwo, on the other hand, made it her mission to make Amara's life miserable. "What are you doing, sitting around like a visitor?" Mrs. Okonkwo snapped one morning when she found Amara reading a book in the sitting room. "Just because you tricked my son into marrying you does not mean you can be lazy in this house. Get up and go help in the kitchen. Make yourself useful for once." Amara quickly stood up and went to the kitchen. The cook, an elderly woman named Mama Ngozi, looked at her with sympathy. "I am sorry, my dear. The madam has been in a terrible mood since you arrived. Here, help me peel these yams for dinner." From that day forward, Mrs. Okonkwo found every opportunity to humiliate Amara. She would wake her up at 5 in the morning to sweep the compound, even though they had 3 gatemen and 2 cleaners. She would criticize everything Amara cooked, even though the food was delicious. She would make Amara serve her guests like a maid, introducing her as that village girl my son foolishly married. The other servants whispered among themselves about how cruel the madam was being, but no one dared to speak up for fear of losing their jobs. Amara endured it all in silence. She would do all the work Mrs. Okonkwo demanded, accept all the insults, swallow all the humiliation. And when Chike came home in the evening, she would smile and pretend everything was fine. "How was your day?" Chike would ask, pulling her into his arms. "It was good," Amara would lie. "Your mother is teaching me how things work in the house." Chike believed her because he wanted to believe that things were getting better. In their room, they were happy. He would tell her about his day at work, and she would listen with genuine interest. He would hold her and tell her how much he loved her. Those moments made all the suffering bearable for Amara. But Mrs. Okonkwo's cruelty only grew worse. She began to suspect that Amara was not telling Chike about the mistreatment, so she became even bolder. One afternoon, when several of her wealthy friends came to visit, Mrs. Okonkwo called Amara to the sitting room. Come here, girl. My friends want to see what a village woman looks like. Stand there and let them look at you." Amara stood there, her cheeks burning with shame, as the wealthy women looked her up and down and made comments about her appearance, her clothes, her background. They laughed and whispered to each other, treating her like an exotic animal in a zoo. When Amara finally escaped back to her room, she cried for hours. 2 months after their arrival, Chief Okonkwo and Chike had to travel to Abuja for an important business meeting. They would be gone for 2 days. Chike was reluctant to leave Amara alone with his mother, but she assured him she would be fine. "Go and take care of your business. I will be here when you return." The morning after Chike left, Mrs. Okonkwo woke Amara up before dawn. "Get up, you lazy girl. Come to the sitting room immediately. I have something important to discuss with you." Amara quickly dressed and went downstairs. In the sitting room, she found Mrs. Okonkwo sitting in her favorite chair, looking at her with cold, calculating eyes. 2 large men stood behind her, strangers Amara had never seen before. "Sit down," Mrs. Okonkwo commanded. Amara sat on the edge of the sofa, her heart beginning to beat faster. Something was wrong. She could feel it in the air. Mrs. Okonkwo leaned forward, her voice dripping with venom. "I have tolerated your presence in my house for 2 months now. 2 months of watching you parade around as my son's wife. 2 months of enduring the shame and embarrassment you have brought to this family. But that ends today." "Madam, I don't understand," Amara said, her voice trembling. "Oh, you will understand soon enough. You see, I made a mistake. I thought that if I made your life miserable enough, you would leave on your own. But you are more stubborn than I gave you credit for. So now I must take more direct action." Mrs. Okonkwo nodded to the 2 men, and they moved toward Amara. "Take her out of this house and drop her somewhere far away. Somewhere she cannot find her way back from." Amara jumped to her feet in terror. "No, please, madam, you cannot do this. Chike will be back tomorrow. Please. My son will never know what happened. I will tell him you stole some of my jewelry and ran away in the night. He will be angry at first, but eventually he will get over you and marry a proper woman from a good family." The 2 men grabbed Amara by her arms. She screamed and fought, but they were too strong. "Please, please, madam, I am your son's wife. How can you do this? Please have mercy." Mrs. Okonkwo's face remained hard as stone. "You should have stayed in your village where you belong. You should never have come here thinking you could become part of our world. Now pay the price for your foolishness." The men dragged Amara out of the house. She screamed for help, but the servants had been ordered to stay in their quarters. The gateman had been told to look the other way. No one came to her rescue. They threw her into the back of a covered van, and before she could escape, they locked the doors and drove away. Amara cried and beat her fists against the walls of the van as they drove for hours. She prayed to God, to her ancestors, to anyone who would listen. When the van finally stopped and the doors opened, Amara found herself in a place she did not recognize. It was another city with different buildings and different streets. The men pulled her out roughly and threw her on the side of the road like garbage. "Don't try to find your way back," one of them warned. "If you do, you'll regret it." Then they drove away, leaving her alone and terrified in a strange city with nothing but the clothes on her back. Amara sat on the dusty roadside and cried until she had no tears left. She thought about trying to find her way back to the mansion, but what would be the point? Mrs. Okonkwo would only throw her out again. Maybe with even worse consequences. She thought about going back to her grandmother in the village, but shame held her back. How could she face Mama Oliaku and admit that all the old woman's warnings had come true? As the sun began to set, Amara forced herself to stand up. She had survived losing her parents. She had survived poverty. She would survive this too. She walked until she found herself in a busy market area. The market reminded her of home, of the simple life she had known before everything changed. A middle-aged woman with a kind face was packing up her vegetable stall. She noticed Amara standing there, looking lost and desperate. "Young woman, are you all right? You look like you need help." Amara's voice was hoarse from crying. "Please, madam, I need work." "Any kind of work. I have nowhere to go and nothing to eat." The woman, whose name was Mama Adayeze, studied Amara's face and saw something there that moved her heart. "Come with me. You can stay in my house tonight, and tomorrow we will talk about work." And so Amara began her new life. Mama Adayeze gave her a small room in her modest house and hired her to help at the vegetable stall. Amara worked harder than she had ever worked in her life. She was at the market before dawn and did not leave until after dark. The work was familiar and comforting, reminding her of simpler times with her grandmother. Meanwhile, back in Lagos, Chike returned from Abuja excited to see his wife. He rushed into the house calling her name, "Amara, Amara, I'm home." But there was no answer. He ran upstairs to their room, but it was empty. He searched every room in the mansion, but Amara was nowhere to be found. Finally, he confronted his mother. "Where is Amara?" Mrs. Okonkwo looked at him with perfectly practiced shock. "You mean you don't know?" "Oh my God, Chike, I have terrible news. That girl you married, she stole my diamond necklace and my gold bracelet and ran away in the middle of the night. I was going to tell you gently, but you need to know the truth about the kind of woman she really is." Chike felt as if the floor had disappeared beneath his feet. No, you're lying. Amara would never do that. She doesn't care about jewelry or money. Where is she? What did you do to her?" "How dare you accuse me? I am your mother. I tried to warn you about that village girl, but you wouldn't listen. Now you see her true nature. She used you to get access to our wealth, and when she had what she wanted, she ran away." "You're lying," Chike shouted, grabbing his mother by the shoulders. "Tell me the truth. Where is my wife?" Chief Okonkwo rushed into the room. "What is going on here?" "Chike, remove your hands from your mother this instant." Chike released her, but his eyes were wild with panic and rage. "Father, Amara is missing. Mother is lying about her stealing jewelry. I know she is lying. Mother did something to her. I know it." But without any proof, and with both his parents insisting on the same story, what could Chike do? He spent days searching for Amara. He went back to Ugweka and questioned Mama Oliaku, who had not heard from her granddaughter. He hired private investigators. He checked hospitals and police stations. But there was no trace of Amara. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. The not knowing was destroying Chike from the inside. He stopped going to work. He stopped eating properly. He stayed in their room for hours, holding Amara's simple village clothes and breathing in her scent. His parents tried to convince him to move on, to accept that she was gone, but he refused to believe it. "She didn't leave me," he would mumble to himself. "She didn't steal anything. She loves me. Something happened to her, something terrible." Unable to cope with the pain, Chike began to drink. At first, it was just a glass of whiskey in the evening to help him sleep, but soon it became a bottle a day, then 2 bottles. He would come home late at night, stumbling drunk, sometimes not coming home at all. His father tried to talk sense into him, but Chike was drowning in his grief and guilt. Mrs. Okonkwo watched her son deteriorate day by day, and for the first time since she had thrown Amara out, she began to feel the stirrings of guilt. But her pride was too strong. She convinced herself that she had done the right thing, that Chike would eventually get over this village girl and return to his normal life. She was wrong. 6 months after Amara disappeared, on a rainy evening, Chike left a bar completely drunk. He got into his car and started driving, even though his vision was blurred and his reflexes were slow. His phone kept ringing. It was his father calling, but he ignored it. All he could think about was Amara, her smile, her voice, the way she used to look at him with such love and trust. "I'm sorry," he mumbled to the empty car. "I'm so sorry I couldn't protect you. I promised your grandmother I would keep you safe, and I failed. My sweet family, before we continue this powerful story, take a quick second and subscribe to my channel right now. You don't want to miss what happens next. Go ahead, hit that button, okay? Now let's move on with the story." Through his alcohol-clouded mind, he didn't see the truck running a red light. He didn't have time to react. The collision was devastating. The sound of metal crushing and glass shattering filled the air. When the ambulance arrived 20 minutes later, Chike was still alive, but barely. They rushed him to the hospital, but he died on the operating table without ever regaining consciousness. Chief and Mrs. Okonkwo received the news at midnight. Mrs. Okonkwo's scream could be heard throughout the hospital. "No, No, not my son, not my only child. She collapsed on the floor, beating her chest in the traditional way of mourning. But beneath the grief was something else, something dark and terrible, the knowledge that she had killed her own son as surely as if she had pushed him in front of that truck. The funeral was the biggest Lagos had seen in years. Hundreds of people came to pay their respects to the Okonkwo family. Politicians, businessmen, traditional rulers, everyone who was anyone attended. But Mrs. Okonkwo sat through it all like a statue, her eyes empty, her heart shattered. At night, alone in her room, she would see Chike's face. She would hear his voice asking, "Where is Amara?" She would remember the day she had ordered those men to throw the girl out like trash. And she would realize, finally, the terrible truth. She had destroyed her son's life because of her pride. Because a poor village girl was not good enough for her precious family name. And now her son was dead, and it was her fault. But even in her guilt and grief, Mrs. Okonkwo's pride remained. She told no one the truth. She let everyone believe that Amara had stolen from them and run away, and that Chike had died in a tragic accident caused by his heartbreak over being betrayed. The lie became the official story, carved into people's memories like words on a tombstone. Far away in that other city, Amara knew nothing of these events. She worked at the market every day, living in Mama Adaeze's small house, keeping her head down and her heart closed. She never spoke about her past to anyone. The pain was too deep, too raw. At night she would lie on her mat and think about Chike. She wondered if he had looked for her. She wondered if he believed his mother's lies about her. She wondered if he had moved on and married someone else. Then one day, about 8 months after she had been thrown out of the Okonkwo mansion, Amara was at the market when she overheard two women talking. "Did you hear about Chief Okonkwo's son? The one who died in that car accident last year. So tragic. They say he was drinking because his wife stole from the family and ran away." Amara's blood turned to ice. She walked closer to the women, her heart pounding so hard she thought it would break through her chest. "Excuse me, what did you say? Whose son died?" The women looked at her curiously. "Chike Okonkwo, the son of that billionaire family in Lagos. It was all over the news. He died in a car crash about 6 months ago." The market began to spin around Amara. She felt her legs give out and she collapsed right there on the ground. Mama Adaeze rushed to her side, calling her name, but Amara couldn't hear anything over the roaring in her ears. Chike was dead. Her husband, the love of her life, was gone. When she finally regained consciousness, she was in Mama Adaeze's house. The kind woman sat beside her, wiping her face with a cool cloth. "My daughter, what happened? Who was that man those women were talking about?" And for the first time since she had been thrown out, Amara told her story. She told Mama Adaeze everything, about meeting Chike in the village, about their love, about the secret marriage, about the cruelty of his mother, and about being dragged away and abandoned in this city. By the time she finished, both women were crying. "And now he is dead," Amara said, her voice hollow. "He died thinking I abandoned him. He died thinking I stole from his family. He died without knowing the truth, and I never got to say goodbye." Mama Adaeze held her as she sobbed. "That woman who did this to you, Chike's mother, she is a murderer. She killed her own son with her wickedness." Something changed in Amara that day. The sweet, gentle village girl with simple dreams hardened. A fire ignited in her heart, not the warm fire of love, but the cold fire of determination. That night, kneeling by her mat, she vowed, "Chike, my love, I will make them pay. Your mother destroyed our lives because she thought I was worthless, just a poor village girl. But I will show her. I will become so successful and powerful that they will regret the day they threw me out like garbage. This I swear on your memory." From then on, Amara worked with a new purpose. She saved every kobo she earned, learned from successful traders, and within 6 months opened her own vegetable stall. She rose before dawn to buy wholesale produce, bargained hard, and sold at fair prices. Her kindness made her stall stand out. She gave free vegetables to struggling mothers, offered credit to those short on money, and added extras with each purchase. Customers loved her, and word spread quickly. Within a year, she had 2 stalls, within 2 years 4. She hired young women from poor backgrounds, treated them with respect, paid them well, and taught them to save and invest. But Amara's ambition grew beyond market stalls. She built connections with farmers in other states, studied importing and exporting, and spent nights teaching herself about business and negotiations. By her third year, she founded Amara Enterprises, an import-export company for fruits and vegetables. She signed contracts with international buyers and local distributors. Her business thrived because she valued honesty and relationships over greed. Money poured in, but she lived simply, supporting her grandmother Mama Oliaku and repaying kindnesses from the past. She never remarried. Many successful men courted her, but her heart remained with Chike. At night, she would stare at the simple ring he gave her and weep for what was lost. 5 years after being cast out, Amara saw an ad in the newspaper. Okonkwo mansion and estate for sale. Contact Chief Okonkwo. Her heart raced. The mighty Okonkwo family was selling their estate. Discreet inquiries revealed the truth. Chief Okonkwo had collapsed after Chike's death, becoming careless. Employees embezzled millions, partners cheated him, and within years the empire crumbled. Amara knew what she had to do. Through a lawyer, she arranged to meet Chief Okonkwo about buying the mansion. On the appointed day, she arrived in a luxury car, dressed in a designer suit, her hair and jewelry understated but elegant. As she stepped through the once golden gates she had last seen in tears, she felt a surge of emotions, anger, sadness, and pride. But the mansion shocked her. Once magnificent, it now looked neglected, peeling paint, overgrown gardens, faded gates. Inside, an elderly servant she remembered opened the door, his voice trembling. "Madam Amara? We all knew the madam lied about you, but we could not speak. Forgive us," she gently touched his shoulder. "There is nothing to forgive, Boniface. You did what you had to do to survive." In the sitting room, where she had once been humiliated, she waited. Chief and Mrs. Okonkwo entered, and she struggled to hide her shock. Chief, once commanding, now walked with a cane, stooped, hair completely white. Mrs. Okonkwo, once regal, looked haggard, worn, stripped of wealth and jewelry, her eyes hollow. At first they didn't recognize her. Chief spoke, his voice weary. "Welcome, madam. My lawyer says you're interested in buying the mansion." Amara held his gaze and said coldly, "Don't you recognize me?" Mrs. Okonkwo gasped, hand to her mouth. "No, Amara." Chief's eyes widened. "The village girl? How?" "Yes," Amara replied. "The poor, worthless girl you threw out like garbage. Your son's wife, whom you treated worse than your servants." Mrs. Okonkwo trembled. "You survived. You came back." "Yes, I survived. No thanks to you. Do you know what happened after your men dumped me? I was homeless. I slept on the streets before a kind woman helped me. I sold vegetables to live, and I cried every night, wondering if Chike thought I had abandoned him." Chief Okonkwo's face paled. "We thought you had run away." My wife said, "Your wife lied." Amara's voice shook with fury. "She paid men to kidnap me and dump me far away. And you believed her. You let her destroy your son's marriage because I was not good enough for your name." Mrs. Okonkwo broke down. "I only wanted him to marry his equal. I didn't know it would end like this. I didn't know he would die." "What was best for him?" Amara shouted. "I was what was best for him. I loved him more than anything. But you couldn't see past my poverty. He died thinking I betrayed him. Because of you, Mrs. Okonkwo collapsed, sobbing. I know. Every night I see his face. I know I killed my son with my pride." "Your apology means nothing," Amara said. "No apology can bring him back. For 5 years I built an empire, not for wealth, but to prove I was worth something. I wanted to show you the girl you discarded could surpass you." Chief whispered, "So you came for revenge?" To gloat, "No, I came for justice. You destroyed me because of pride. Now your empire has crumbled. How does it feel, Chief, to have nothing?" The silence was heavy. Mrs. Okonkwo sobbed on the floor. Chief sat broken. "You are right," he whispered. "We deserve this. If you've come to take this house and leave us homeless, then do it." Amara looked at them, once powerful, now broken. For years she had dreamed of this moment. Yet seeing them humbled, she felt no satisfaction, only emptiness. Revenge would not bring Chike back. His love had been pure, and he would never have wanted her to destroy his parents. She surprised even herself with her decision. I came here planning to take everything, but I won't, not because you deserve mercy, but because Chike would not have wanted it. I will buy this mansion, yes, but I will not throw you out. You can stay here for the rest of your lives. Consider it a gift from the daughter-in-law. You despised Mrs. Okonkwo crawled to her knees, clutching Amara's dress. Please forgive us. I know what I did was unforgivable, but please, Amara looked down at the once mighty woman, now broken. I forgive you. Not because you deserve it, but because hatred is destroying me the way pride destroyed you. But forgiveness is not forgetting. You will live with this guilt forever, she turned to Chief. And you, I forgive you too. But you were weak. You let lies destroy your son. That guilt is yours to bear. Tears streamed down Chief's face. Thank you. We do not deserve it. Amara rose to leave. At the door she turned. This wealth never brought you happiness. You destroyed love with your own hands. I hope one day you understand what you lost. She left the mansion with her head high, driving through the gates that once symbolized her humiliation. Instead of triumph, she felt sadness. Sadness for Chike, for herself, and even for the Okonkwos. That evening, she went to Chike's grave for the first time, laying fresh flowers. My love, I did it. I became successful, just as I promised. I faced them, but I could not take revenge. I like to think that is what you would have wanted. I forgive them, Chike. For both of us, maybe now we can both rest. As the sun set, she remembered his smile, his laugh, the way he had loved her. She promised to keep living, to keep building, to help others. She would honor his memory by being the woman he believed in. The village girl had become a powerful businesswoman, but more importantly, she had become a woman of strength and forgiveness. And in the end, that was worth more than all the mansions and golden gates in the world. What would you have done if you were Amara? Would you forgive the people who destroyed your life, or would you make them pay? If Amara's strength and heart touched you today, type forgiveness in the comments below to honor her courage. Let's see how many hearts still believe in love stronger than pride. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more African stories that remind us what real strength and love look like. Take care until next time.